My name is Bruce Friedrich. I am founder and president of the Good Food Institute. GFI, the Good Food Institute, is basically a science think tank or a network of science think tanks. We have about 215 full-time staff around the world. The plurality of our team members are scientists. We operate in the U.S. as well as India, Israel, Brazil, Singapore, and across Europe. And our fundamental focus is to do for alternative ways of producing meat what organizations like the Environmental Defense Fund or NRDC do for renewable energy and electric vehicles. So pretty much everybody who cares about the climate knows that we need to decarbonize energy. We also need to decarbonize food. And people are sort of scratching their heads because everybody recognizes we're not going to convince people to make diet choices on the basis of climate. So with renewable energy, the idea is you don't have to convince people to consume less energy. You just produce the energy better. With electric vehicles, we don't have to convince people not to drive. We make the vehicles less carbon-inducing. It's the same thing here. And that's not to say that we shouldn't work on energy conservation, but we do need renewable energy. It's not to say we shouldn't work on walkable cities and great public transit and everything else, but we do need electric vehicles. Here too, sure, let's educate people about the adverse impacts and encourage people to change their diets, but we've been doing that for 50 years, and meat consumption just keeps going up. So we have 27 years until we hit 2050. In the last 27 years, the world has eaten 80% more meat. It's up to 352 million metric tons of land animal meat consumed every single year. All of the predictions are from agricultural economists that something like that is going to happen to 2050. The solution is let's take plants and figure out how to turn them into something that from the vantage of the consumer is identical. What you want from energy is when you turn on the lights, they come on and it doesn't cost more. What you want from electric vehicles is reasonable price, reasonable battery range, reasonable charging infrastructure. What people want from meat is the meat experience at a reasonable cost. Meat is just made up of fats, proteins, minerals, and water. Plants have fats, proteins, minerals, and water, but far more efficient. Instead of feeding those plants to animals, let's turn those plants directly into meat. And then cultivated meat, actual animal meat, but just like you can take a small sampling, a small cutting from a plant or a seed and grow that into a whole plant, you can take a small sampling of cells from a chicken, pig, cow, fish, bathe those cells in nutrients, and grow actual animal meat. Far more efficient, much less land required, no medically relevant antibiotics required, a fraction of the direct emissions, just a much better way of producing meat. So we've been producing meat the same way for the last 12,000 years. We can do it better. And hey, there's a ton of profitability to doing it in this better way as well. The timeline is going to be a function of government support. So just like the timeline for transition to electric vehicles is going to require significant investment in charging infrastructure and some scientific progress, same basic case for transition to renewable energy. This is probably easier. We don't need to retool the entire grid. We don't need all the precious metals that are required for EV batteries. It's probably a simpler transition, but it's really going to be a function of how quickly governments incentivize, solving the scientific challenges, there are some, and scaling up production so that we can get to taste the same or better and cost the same or less. That's what we need to get to, and that's going to be a function of the resources that we put into solving those challenges. So GFI.org is basically the Wikipedia for alternative proteins. And GFI.org/newsletters is where you can go to get GFI, my organization's monthly reports. You'll get highlights from the 6 areas of the world where we operate. And then I think there are 3 or 4 other policy, industry, and science-focused newsletters that come out 1 time a month to quarterly. We also have monthly webinars, the business of alternative proteins, and the science of alternative proteins. And you'll find out about all of that at GFI.org or especially GFI.org/newsletters. So I remember the first time I ate cultivated meat was with a friend of GFI named Susie Welch. And Uma Valetti, the founder and CEO of Memphis Meats, now Upside Foods, came to New York City and we, in Susie's kitchen, consumed cultivated chicken. And it was just mind-blowing to eat cultivated chicken. I've been vegan for a very long time. And so Gene's point, my friend's point, was you don't remember what meat tastes like, and it's not this. So the first time I ate cultivated meat, I was like, wow, Gene is right. Plant-based meat is not there yet. And in plant-based meat's defense, it had not been tried. So plant-based meat really was, let's take the waste product of the soy oil industry. Let's take the waste product of the wheat for pasta and bread industry. So that protein, let's cram it together into something that looks like animal meat, and let's force vegetarians to eat it. That's what plant-based meat was. And as somebody who'd been vegetarian for a while, like, that was fine with me. The first time I ate cultivated meat, mind blown. I still think we can get there with cultivated meat. We do have some products that are there. They still cost too much, but the taste for most meat eaters is on point. So we need to get to taste the same or better and cost the same or less on the plant-based side. The first time I ate cultivated meat, I realized that we have a little ways to go on the taste the same or better.